So the big piece to come out of last night's Godzilla Day stream was that we have the official title for Yamazaki's follow-up to Godzilla Minus One. And after much debate, whether it be Godzilla Minus Two or something else, the official title is in fact Godzilla Minus Zero. So here we have the new logo, Godzilla Minus Zero. It's not even just Godzilla Minus Zero, it's Godzilla Minus 0.0. I don't know if that's just... I know this is a continuation of the whole Godzilla Minus 1.0, but it makes me wonder why the decimal is ever needed in the first place other than to make like an O.O face. I'm never going to not see this, by the way, and now you're not going to either. But in this logo, something else that's worth noting, I noticed that Christine Chapman pointed this out, the actual G has changed as well. Whereas before there was like a slight silhouette of Godzilla and his head and some dorsal plates if you really squinted at it. Here now the G is much, it's considerably different. The top of the G is much more thinned out. The actual like little spike is much more pronounced, and it's got a couple of different branches going on. So the actual logo is different. I don't know if there's going to be any significance to this. I know that when the first Godzilla Minus One logo came out with the G, people were like, oh yeah, it looks like Godzilla. Maybe that'll resemble his design. And then that turned out to be not true whatsoever. So I'm not sure what the implications are of changing the G here, or if there will be any implications. Maybe this is just saying, hey, like it's a new movie. There you go. So Godzilla Minus Zero. This is the title drop. And The Hollywood Reporter put out an article late last night. It seems like they were ready to go, covering the reveal of the new logo as well as the new title drop. So Toho Studios shared the title Monday for Mighty Godzilla's Next Rampage, and with Oscar-winning director and VFX supervisor Takashi Yamazaki returning to helmet. So yes, obviously this is a follow-up to one of the probably the most successful Godzilla movie of all time, you know, winning an Oscar for VFX. Very, very impressive. And the really big thing is down here. According to insiders, the new film is being positioned not just as a sequel, but as a statement piece. Yamazaki and Toho are reportedly locking in a late 2026 global release window, with production ramping up in New Zealand and Norway later this year. Full cast and story details remain under wraps. Okay, so a couple different things here, and a lot of this is going to just be off the cuff, because I don't know a whole lot into the production of Godzilla Minus One, but there are some things here that indicate to me that Toho is investing a little bit more into Godzilla Minus Zero. So the big piece, first of all, is that it's coming out, or that they're at least targeting a late 2026. So I'm going to assume that they're going to be launching for Godzilla Day 2026, right? Like that's pretty late in the year. So it just makes sense, Godzilla Day, that you would launch a new Godzilla film. So hopefully they're able to do something similar to last year, where it was November 3rd in Japan, but then it was like immediately followed up December 1st internationally. If they can make it even closer, if they can close that gap even a little bit more, that would be incredible. Like I'm very interested and very excited to see this new film. So second piece, it's being positioned not just as a sequel, but as a statement piece, right? Like there is something that Toho and Yamazaki feel that they need to say with this movie. Now, obviously, this is not new for the Godzilla franchise. Like Godzilla 1954 had something to say about the atomic bomb. Shin Godzilla had something to say about the government's response, or the government's, you know, tomfoolery during the Fukushima Daiichi accident. Godzilla Minus One didn't really seem like it was addressing anything specifically, and if it did, then it was just doing it very subtly. So for them to say, no, that we have something that we want to say, something that we want to be heard with this film, it really makes me wonder what that might be. Because in the 3 years since Godzilla Minus One, like Japan has had its struggles, you know, economically, Japan is still not quite where they used to be, even though it looked like they were starting to have a bit of an economic upturn earlier in the year, but now it seems to be going back down a little bit. So I'm not sure what the big thing is that they want to say. Like Godzilla's history, they've said pretty much everything that there is to say about nuclear energy. So I'm very curious as to what statement it is that they want to say. That being said, I'm very excited for them to make that statement. You know, I'm very curious. I'm very, very curious. I'll just leave it at that. They say they have a message they want to convey. Great. Okay. I feel like Godzilla -1, the message was like, you know, the resilience of the human spirit. And yes, they did that. Okay. So they are also doing filming in Norway and New Zealand. Now, New Zealand has seen its share of love from the MonsterVerse, Godzilla vs. Kong and Godzilla X Kong, and maybe even Supernova, I think, will have done all their filming. Not all of their filming, but they've all filmed in places like New Zealand or Australia. Now, my understanding was that all of -1 was filmed in Japan on a very tight budget of $15 million. So the fact that they're able to move on to different locations makes me think that Toho is like, okay, we can afford to invest a little bit more money into this film, and really like ramp up the details and maybe the special effects, things like that. So it's nice to see Toho have a little bit more confidence and to invest a little bit more into what that film is going to be. You know, obviously it's not something that they're just going to be able to throw money at until a good movie comes out. Like, but it seems like if Yamazaki needs a little bit more resources, that it seems I'm fairly confident that Toho is going to be able to provide some of that relief, which is interesting to see. Now, as for the title itself, Godzilla -0, what could this mean? Now, those of you that have paid attention to, you know, most of my content, you might remember that I did a video with Brian Flynn earlier this year where he accidentally dropped the title of the next Toho film. It was very casual thing, and I had to end up bleeping it out. The title that he mentioned is not the title that it wasn't -0. You might take a pretty decent guess as to what title he said. So it seems like at one point there was a different working title. Granted, that was almost half a year ago. So it seems like -0 is where they landed. So the name -0 seems very intentional. Very like this is what we want it to be. What could it mean? So -1, the thinking behind -1 was that it was after World War II, Japan reduced to nothing, Godzilla shows up, manages to take away even more from them. Okay, I get it. That I understand it. -1, totally on board. Makes sense to me. It also takes place like chronologically before 1954, so before the events of a Godzilla 1954. Obviously, Godzilla is not going to appear in like Gojira 1954 is not going to be in the same continuity as -1. But, you know, that whole -1, it's like it takes place before the first one. Okay, I can get behind that. So -0 might mean just, first of all, it's a continuation of -1. So the minus is just indicating, yeah, it's a continuation of -1. But maybe 0 means that we're in that 1954 era. So at least a few years have passed since the events of -1, and now this movie will take place, and presumably Godzilla will show up. So maybe that's what that is trying to indicate, is that it's a continuation of -1, obviously, because it says minus, but 0 meaning that it takes place closer to around the time that Godzilla 1954 would have happened. The events of that movie would have happened while this is going to be its own timeline. So that's my initial. Those are my initial thoughts as to -0. Like, there's not a whole lot to unpack in -0. Now, if you're a mathematician, right, or from a STEM field like I am, you know that -0 mathematically doesn't mean anything. Like 0 is 0, right? It's the Mr. Incredibles meme, like math is math. 0 is 0. But the minus could also mean a trajectory, right? Like sometimes it doesn't matter, the absolute value of something doesn't matter, but its rate of change matters. Or the value by which it change matters. Like temperature, people tell you temperature, scientists will tell you that temperature doesn't mean a whole lot, but changes in temperature mean a whole lot, right? Like you're sitting in your house right now. It's room temperature. Presumably it's comfortable. The change of temperature you experience when you go outside, like that's significant. Whether it's hot, the heat of summer, right? And it's like 20 degrees hotter outside than it is inside, or if it's, you know, the depths of winter and it's much colder outside, like those changes in temperature mean more than absolute value. So perhaps -0 is to suggest that the characters are at 0, which is like their default setting. But then this minus lingers, and this minus is like, no, something's about to happen that's going to send their trajectory downward. Perhaps that's the meaning that they're trying to convey with -0. The third possibility that I can think of off the top of my head is that -0 just has a strong tie or implication to whatever it is, this statement piece that Yamazaki and Toho feel they need to make. It seems like they're being tight-lipped about what exactly that statement is, but the title of -0 plays into whatever it is, that message, that takeaway. So those are just some ideas off the cuff, right? Obviously, there's not a whole lot to go off of. I'm going to assume that Godzilla will look familiar, sort of like Ride Goji versus minus Goji. Like overall silhouettes are going to be quite similar, but there will be slight distinctions in the design, if for no other reason that Toho's going to want to make merchandise, right? Like you have all your -1 Godzilla merchandise. Well, here's a new, slightly different design so that you buy all of that merchandise again. So there's going to be a different Godzilla design. Like I would bet all the money in my bank account, which is not that much, but I would bet all of it to say, yeah, Godzilla is going to have a slightly tweaked appearance in this film. Whether or not there will be another monster remains to be seen. I genuinely, legitimately have no idea. I do not have any idea. I would tell you if I had an idea, or I would avoid the subject entirely. I truly do not know if there will be another monster in this film. You know, Yamazaki has previously said that he really likes Hedorah. And even on this channel with like we've theorized that you could tie Hedorah into something like the Japan oil crisis. I think that's what it was called. You know, and have that Hedorah be something that, because we know minus Godzilla doesn't really get impacted long-term by traditional artillery, right? But something like Hedorah, who is more chemically, you know, what might you say? His arsenal is more chemical in nature. Maybe that would prove to be an adversary for Godzilla. I'm going to assume that there's going to be another monster in this film, just because otherwise the film might feel too close to what Godzilla -1 was, right? Like Godzilla was the main threat of Godzilla -1. And so how do you make a sequel that distinguishes its identity from the first film? I don't know how well you can do that if it's another standalone Godzilla film. I feel like there has to be some other, at the very least, I think it has to be some other antagonistic force. Like maybe it's the US military acting as that adversarial force in this film. Maybe it's another monster. I'm not sure, but I feel like there has to be something else there. But we'll see. Time will tell. Let's say as of today, there's a year to go before the movie comes out. If they're aiming for Godzilla Day 2026, there's lots of room to speculate. I'm hoping that they'll reveal more details at San Diego Comic-Con next year, which I am currently planning to attend. So it would be very cool to be there and get some more information. But yeah, that's the current situation for Godzilla -0. Very interesting title, and this Hollywood Reporter article makes me really interested to see what it is that Toho and Yamazaki feel like they need to say with this second film. It seems like yes, they understand that -1 was a cultural moment and had a lot going for them, but now it's like, no, now that they've made their presence known, they're going to use that presence to say something. Very interested to see what they say. So anyways, that's it for coverage on Godzilla -0. More Godzilla Day stuff to come, including some really exciting Super 7 reveals, as well as another recording with Brian Flynn. So stay tuned for that. And as always, I will talk to you guys again soon. See you in a bit.